Howdy and welcome back. So we've introduced sets. We've talked about how a graph can effectively be defined as a set of vertices and a set of edges communicating the relationships between different vertices within our graph. We talked about the basic types of graphs and select properties. And now, I don't know, you might be wondering, how do graphs prove useful? And we're going to see they're going to do a fantastic job of representing relationships between different entities. So how can we use graphs? To quote the CLRS Introduction to Algorithms textbook, graph problems pervade computer science, and algorithms for working with them are fundamental to the field. Hundreds of interesting computational problems are coached in terms of graphs. So there's widespread application of graphs across multiple and various computational problems. And here we're just going to focus on a couple things we can model with graphs. We're talking about the representational, what we can represent or model with graphs. We're not going to focus so much on the algorithms that can be applied to that representation. We'll just scratch the surface on that towards the end of the week. Understand that in this textbook referenced here, which you will use in 225, I believe there's like 4 chapters on just graph algorithms. So this representation has a lot of interesting algorithms that can be applied to it to effectively allow us to interact with them in a very diverse set of ways. Some things we can model, though: social networks, transportation networks, biological networks, and many more. I'm just listing a couple that we can get through comfortably within the time allocated for this lesson. So let's talk about social networks. There exist different kinds of relationships between people and groups of people, which can be modeled using graphs. Social structures can be modeled using vertices to represent individuals and organizations, and then we could use the edges to represent relationships amongst them. For instance, we could model a social network of friends using an undirected graph whose vertices were people and edges denoted friendship amongst those people. So if we had like person A as a vertex, person B, if those two people were friends, we could express that friendship through an edge. And what we'll see here and later on is the vertexes can have a lot of kind of attributes stored within them. And likewise, we can store different properties within, say, a particular edge, such as a weight, determine maybe the strength of that friendship. Maybe, on a 1 to 10 scale, person 10 and A are really close friends, so they have relationship factor, whatever you'd like to call as 10. Maybe person A is also friends with person C, and that relationship isn't perhaps as strong. Anyways, we'll get into this, as we progress through graphs in the week, but just, look here how we kind of have these entities, and just by drawing a line through them, creating an edge between them, we can establish some sort of relationship, and we can actually give properties to that relationship, such as maybe a weight determining or communicating the strength of the relationship. So just to, introduce kind of a couple of other flavors of social network graphs. You can have collaboration graphs where we could communicate that maybe 2 people work together by creating a undirected graph with the edges saying that if there's an edge between any of the vertices, those people are known associates and have worked on some sort of project or in some capacity with one another. If we wanted to take this maybe a step further and kind of show how better reflect the hierarchical relationships as they exist in the workplace, say with kind of this idea of managers, senior staff, regular course assistants, we could do something with a directed graph to show that, I'm able to influence what the senior CAs are working on, and in turn, they will go ahead and influence the course assistants to help ensure that whatever kind of our overarching goals are goes ahead and gets accomplished. So, just depending on the type of graphs being used, we can actually communicate some different properties of the relationship. I prefer the one on the left. I view that, when we're working with all the core staff. It's a very collaborative environment, but you can, show these hierarchies too, just by saying instead of an undirected graph, we're using a directed graph, and we're going to use it to communicate influence opposed to maybe collaboration. So transportation networks are another entity or thing that can be modeled well using graphs. And if you think about it here, just take a look at the diagram on the right. This is a route map for Alaska Airlines. I'm not sure what year it was issued, but we can see here there are different cities, there are different kind of lines communicating a service from, say, one destination to the other. And if we wanted to model this using graph representation, we could go ahead and model the airports as vertices and flights as directed edges from the origin to the destination. Since there are multiple flights per day, perhaps we use a multi-graph and assign, say, each edge a flight number to communicate that, say, a particular destination is serviced multiple times per day from a particular source. Going ahead and, just looking at it from the transportation perspective again, we could look at the interstate highway, the roadway networks across the country, and think about, well, what if we wanted to represent them in our program? How can we show kind of the relationships amongst them? Well, we could represent them as a graph where intersections were the vertices comprising our graph. So where, say, one interstate highway runs into another. And then we could go ahead and represent the actual roadways as edges. And the question, here becomes, well, depending on the scale that we are, or resolution perhaps, that we're looking at roadways across the country, maybe we use a directed graph since some roads are one way. So the last example I want to go through is just biological networks. We can use graphs to model them within our applications. And the example that I'm going to provide here is from my PhD dissertation. So we had this high resolution imaging data set taken of the cerebrovasculature across a single mouse brain. With that, the question was, okay, we have this whole bundle of images. When you put them together, you can the three-dimensional structure of the brain emerges, the blood vessels are there. How can we take that raw imaging data and convert it or represent it in a form that would allow us to perform some sort of informatics across it? Well, the first step was to go ahead and actually extract the blood vessels from the imaging data and encode them in a particular form. So once we did that and had everything extracted, the next part was to go from that intermediary representation to something that would allow us to store different attributes about the individual vessels within the brain, as well as a fashion that would allow us to quickly query and extract vessels out of it that we were interested in. So from the intermediary to the persistent means of storage that I was looking to do, during the conversion process, we computed a number of different attributes about all of the vessels presenting within our data set. Essentially, the end result was this very dense graph here shown on the left, where I've actually laid out the different edges and vertices as they'd actually present within the imaging data set, which more or less reflects and allows us to actually reconstruct the underlying structure of both the topology and the geometry from our graph representation, which was kind of a cool after effect of this. But you can just look here on the right, which is a zoomed in kind of perspective into some arbitrarily selected region of this, and you can see that this graph is quite dense. But the cool thing is, once you have this representation, and within each node, there's some attributes stored within each edge. There's some attributes about a vessel stored. And without getting too much into it, what it allowed us to do was to query this representation and say, extract all vessels that meet some sort of property. So one application was just looking at things by size. So we were able to just come up with a query and essentially extract everything that we would consider a medium-sized vessel, everything that was considered a small-sized vessel, and then the entire capillary system there as well. I did omit the image of the large size vessels. That's in my dissertation. It was a little choppy due to imperfect imaging, but the whole process I thought was pretty cool. So this is another interesting application of graphs applied to, or I guess, biological networks represented using graphs. And actually the end result of this was we stored all of this in a graph database. So y'all talked about relational databases. There are also databases that are highly optimized for storing graph structures such as this. So we went ahead and we encoded this, or I guess inserted all of this graph into a graph database, and we were able to query and pull things out just as we've shown here. With a similar, with kind of similar text-based queries that you've interacted with your SQLite database stuff in this course. So with that, we're at the end of our lesson for today, and I hope this proved motivating for what's to come during the remainder of the week.